there's times when you have to put in the extra hours. You're expected to be at home around 5 for dinner, and you're not. And she has to make dinner, feed the kids, and do the dishes without receiving a call or text like, where are you? And it can be lonely.
Today we had Tanner Garfield on the podcast. Amazing story. I loved hearing about his first jobs, working for someone that was on the Forbes list, working for his dad, to what he's built with Strata Homes. Really good friend, and he got inspired hearing him talk about his wife and how she's supporting him and everything he's trying to carve out for his team. So hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening.
I've always been in the building industry, kind of a young guy working at 15 and a half, 16. I worked for a friend's construction company that did tile, and I liked what I enjoyed about the industry. What I enjoy about the industry and what I enjoyed then was the opportunity to create. It's really engaging and fulfilling, even in the small things, right? You can see how some tile you delivered as a delivery guy in 3 days, you come back, it's completed shower, and it's like, that's cool. I played a part in that. And so I worked various jobs in construction, went on a mission, learned Spanish on my mission.
Where'd you go?
I didn't go to anywhere exciting or exotic. I went to Indiana, Spanish, so it was more of,
You covered the whole state.
Well, there's a lot of factories up there, but yeah, it was a hunt for Latino and to practice the language and things like that. But
Okay.
I speak better Spanish now than I ever did on my mission.
Okay.
But it forced me to learn the language. I took Spanish in high school. It's the only class I got a legit F in.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, so I went on a mission, learned Spanish, went back to work for that tile company, and really the one of the guys, the owner of the company at the time was a top, I don't know if it was like, he was on Forbes most growth businesses.
The owner of the tile company.
The owner of the tile company.
Okay.
This small little outfit in Vegas. I was in Las Vegas at the time.
Okay.
And his name's Bill Sagrinos. And Bill, he actually does a podcast now. It's funny.
Huh.
It's about
Drop him a line. We'll have him on.
It's about Volkswagens.
That's his podcast?
Yeah.
Just Volkswagen?
It's called
That's very niche.
V-Dubs is what it's called.
Huh.
But also he spent like 60 days in Mexico prison like a couple of years ago. So he talks about that, and that was actually
Got to give me a little more on like why.
He forgot he had a firearm in his vehicle. And so when he got stopped at a search, it was discovered under his seat. Yeah. So like it
like he drove into Mexico?
Yeah, he was down there for an off-road race.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that checks out.
Yeah, and he you should listen to his podcast talking about it. Like, it was a pretty wild time in his life. The prisons and the government's all ran by the cartel and stuff down there. So they figured out that he had some means and just extorted him until, I don't know what it all cost and everything, but
yeah,
extorted him as much as they could until he was finally able to get out. But
wow,
I think he lost over 100 pounds.
It's ugly.
Mm-hmm. It's ugly. But anyways, he was always like really, he, for lack of a better word, he'd always rip my ass about just being a young, dumb adolescent, not making good choices, not strapping down the tile, or just like lighting me up for dumb, stupid things, that as a kid you don't really think about, like unsafe practices or, just working harder instead of smarter. And obviously, like, he had the fruit on the tree, right? He was in Forbes magazine, he had a successful business. And so, I don't know. I think probably looking back, like, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I've always been, like, highly motivated, self-starter. And kind of seeing his success and what he was able to create in his company probably did add to my desire to want to own my own company one day.
Did the way he treated you, like busting your balls, did that, like, do you feel like that motivated you more, less? Like, or was that just part of working for him?
Well, I mean, my dad would say the same things to me, right? But
You've told me about your dad before.
When my dad would say those things to me, I'm like, man, this guy's a jerk. But then when Bill would say them to me, in some ways, I'm like, man, he's smart. Like, he's right. It's the same content, right? Like,
yeah,
I think my dad became really wise and smart to me probably sometime after my mission, 20 to 25. I was like, man, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? I don't know why.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You told me a story when we were golfing. We were talking about how overwhelming it is to run a business and scale. And you told me that I'm paraphrasing, so maybe this will help you jog your memory of the story. You went to your dad, like, very upset about, very overwhelmed with something. And your dad just basically told you, like, get used to it. Remember that story?
Yeah. No, I was a young project manager on a then it was a big job. I don't know, like, $1 million job today is not what $1 million job was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was a big job for me. I was like 25 and I just got thrown into the fire on a project, like, hey, go build this.
Yeah.
And it was a surgery center for a plastic surgeon out of Vegas. And
pretty important first job.
Oh yeah, I mean, they would do outpatient surgery there, so implants, Botox, like all the face stuff. And
so you worked in some work for you for the part of the deal. That's
yeah,
why you got such
obviously.
good skin.
Yeah, the beard, hair implants. I remember, like, having this first sub kickoff meeting. The demo guys were done, and I'm like, I want to get everybody together, and we're gonna, have this kickoff, and it's gonna be great. And these guys, like, they're, 20-year plus tradesmen, hard nosed, like the typical construction guy that you would, you picture in your mind right now.
Yes.
That you can relate with. And these guys, they just ate me up. They just were mean, and in reality, in hindsight, like, they were probably just being themselves. Like, they were probably not, like, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Like, it's how construction is. Like, there's like construction language, and then there's normal English. And
yeah.
And I remember, like, after that meeting, I called my dad, and this is where the story picks up. I called my dad. I was like, dude, like, I'm crying. Like, I'm like crying to my dad. These guys are mean. I don't want to do this. And my dad was basically like, he said some explicit words probably that aren't appropriate for this podcast, but they were and I hadn't heard my dad really talk to me that way before.
Wow.
And in this type of setting, but he was like, basically, like, you need to lose your feelings and you need to toughen up if you want to work in this industry, and, like, you need to step up and, screw your feelings.
Yeah.
Like, what you're feeling, just figure it out, dude. And I was just like, what? Like, I was looking for sympathy. I was looking for empathy, but it really, like, opened my mind after that. I was kind of irritated at the time. I was like, whatever, Dad, you don't want to listen to me. Like, I'm off the phone. But, like, in looking back and reflecting, like, I just thought about it, and I was like, he's probably right. And that, from that, like, moment, it changed.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, do you feel like that style of mentoring people still works. Like that's kind of like, I feel like I was maybe, and I could be wrong, but I feel like I was maybe one of the last of that generation to be mentored with tough love like that by coaches and parents and other mentors. But do you feel like that still works, or do you feel like you have to take a different approach now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I can tell you right now that we have some young people that work at Strata, and some of them, like one of them's my nephew, and behind closed doors, I hear from his parents, like, he appreciates the tough love.
Yeah.
Because he gets it from, he doesn't get it from very many sources. And when he gets it from me, he's like, man, like, he said once to his mom, like, man, Tanner was mean to me, but then I was kind of offended, but then I realized that it was because he loves me that he spoke to me the way that he did, and that it was the right thing. And so, I don't know, like, it's probably situational. It probably doesn't make sense to every personality type. But in some situations, I think it's probably needed, and maybe desperately needed.
Yeah. I love that.
What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, this is very relevant to me in my business right now, because I have this mistake that was made by someone on my team, probably, let's say $5,000 to $20,000 mistake. So and this person is related to me. And so I just told him, I'm like, look, dude, like, just gave you a raise, just gave you more PTO, and you're burning me like this. And I was pretty firm, and I said, where does your career go from here with your current role? You're on the track to be like a profit sharing executive someday. If you're going to run my business like this, I don't care if we're blood relatives. I don't want to share profit with you. It was very, very like, hey, I got to draw a line in the sand here and put my foot down. So super relevant. But I will say that I have learned I have to pick my battles. I was on a phone call last night with a customer. They're renting a office from us, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, if this happened, I would just fire everyone in your business. I would just fire everyone. I'm like, well, that's why your business is crumbling and my business is profitable, because you can't just fire everyone every time a mistake is made. That's
What did she say to that?
Well, she had nothing to say. Her business is literally at zero. Like, it's just her and maybe one other person. She's trying to like get her business off the ground. And it's like, of course you would just fire everybody. It's like,
yeah.
But I think that's part of being a business owner, is like, it's just being firm enough, but you can't just gut your whole business every time a mistake's made, or else who suffers? Your customers.
Yeah. I look back at, my education and growth, and any place that I've landed, any of these wonderful construction companies that I work for, I've cost them thousands of dollars in efficiency, in mistakes made, in like, construction is a costly business, and mistakes equate to money, like, all the time.
Yeah.
And it's either material, time, or mistakes and new ordering, new material, whatever. You get it, right?
Yeah.
And I see it in my own business daily. Maybe not daily, but often. And you can't be there all the time to micromanage and make these micro decisions for people that affect the overall cost of things all the time. You have to enable them and empower them and say, like what you're saying, pick your battles and say, hey, it's okay. Like, it'll be okay. Don't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
And
it's hard.
It's funny. Like, I have a team member that he takes a lot of personal accountability, and that's why I love him. And I really, really appreciate all his work, like honestly. And I've heard him say before things like, "Hey, that's my mistake. I'll pay for it." And I'm like, what are you going to do with 3,000 square feet of wood? You know, like,
Yeah.
like what are you going to do with that wood? Put it on the side of your house? I'm like, we put you in that position for you to make that mistake. It is your fault that you made the mistake. Don't make that mistake again. It's not your financial burden to bear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And another example, like, same guy actually. But early on, the wrong stucco color was given on to our stucco contractor, and he colored this whole side of like an RV garage, the wrong color. And I drove by just to check to see how things were going. I was like, man, that color looks awfully gray. Like, I remember looking at the renderings, and it was like a white, like a light. First of all, I see like 4 colors of white, but not the 60 that other people see.
Sure.
And I knew it was wrong, so I checked the design book. I called the sub, and I said, hey, what color was given? It was wrong. And so I called I called the project manager, and I said, hey, I think that color's wrong. Can you check into it? I already knew it was wrong, but I wanted him to go through this exercise.
Yeah.
And so he called me back, and like, he was almost crying, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, man, I made a mistake. He thought it, you know, in his mind, that was it. Like, he was going to get fired.
Yeah.
He's like, I understand if you need to fire me. I'm like, dude, like, that's not even on my mind.
Yeah.
You know, like, just don't make that mistake again. Yeah. And my subcontractor, who we do a lot of work with, and we'd done a lot of homes with, you know, him and I are over here in the corner kind of chuckling, smiling, appreciating really his willingness to take extreme ownership over this.
Yeah.
And my sub was like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, it'll be okay. So in the end, like, our sub just kind of, we do so much work. It wasn't a big deal. It was like 4 hours, couple buckets, like, no big deal. They just took care of it.
Yeah.
But it's the process of learning and implementing. Has he made another mistake like that in the 2 years plus after that moment? He hasn't.
Yeah.
You know, and so if I would have jumped in and been like, hey, you know, verify every little detail, then, you know, that's so much of my time.
Yeah.
It's impossible to manage it all.
Yep.
And so when you talk about scaling, part of scaling is letting go and watching other people make mistakes with your profit and your money, and, you know, working through the growth stage. It's how I learned. It's how you learn in construction in this business.
Yeah. Well, I want to highlight basically what you're saying is we as business owners should care more about the direction people are headed than the mistake itself, right? Like, if someone's going to make mistakes and not care, not apologize, not improve, they're out.
Yeah.
But if they care, if they want to get better, if it doesn't happen again, it's like, that's the type of person you want on your team. Mm-hmm. Off topic tangent, but I feel like that's also like hugely relevant to spiritual journey, right? It's like God cares more about the direction we're headed than the mistakes we're making. He cares about where's your heart and where are you headed. So I thought that was a really cool parallel with what you're saying.
Yeah.
But, you know, so walk me through the journey. You started with the tile company. You listed off a couple different companies. How did you get the confidence to say, I'm ready to be the GC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I worked, so after the tile company and my mission, I went to work in an estimating department as what's titled in commercial construction as a project engineer. And a project engineer is basically like the lowest guy on the totem pole. the paper pusher. The expectation is like 6:30, 7 a.m. You're at work, and you're one of the last guys to leave, 5:36, whatever.
Yeah.
And in Las Vegas, where I was, projects run, 4 cycles. Here in Southern Utah, we're fortunate that, guys are starting around 6 and maybe they'll work till 6. But after that, like, nobody's working through the evening.
Yeah.
The evening shift or the morning shift. And Vegas runs 24/7. The town does. And so just to be able to get projects done on buildings, for instance, like a Walgreens, to go in and renovate a Walgreens on the Strip in MGM, how do you improve that while it's their top 2 producing revenue stores in the nation are the one in the Venetian and the one at the MGM.
The Walgreens.
Mm-hmm, Walgreens.
I love that.
And so that's how much revenue these restaurants and businesses depend on the Strip. And so to get in and do a project like that, it's way more intense than building here.
It's a whole new animal.
It's a whole new animal. So learning how to, I started on the back, really where projects start, which is in estimating. So being able to estimate a project right, knowing all your factors, calculating for things that you may not know. One of my mentors, Gail Ward, who was a big reason why the stadium, the Allegiant Stadium, was so successful. He's gone on and done some big projects.
Yeah.
But he would always ask, like, what are we missing? After we have our budget completed, like what things are we missing? What are we not thinking of? And so that's kind of where my education, hands-on, really started. And so from there, like, I would estimate these small projects that were like less than $1 million.
Okay.
And then I would build them. And so, like, I got hands-on the budget side, and then I would have to complete them for what I estimated them for. So I ran like special projects, small projects, for a commercial general contractor. And that really opened my eyes because, like, I didn't have anybody to blame. Sometimes in construction, fingers are getting pointed everywhere.
I'd say all the time in construction.
All the time.
Almost all the time.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's like general contractor is like, oh, it's engineer's fault. Oh, it's the architect's fault. Subcontractors like, oh, GC didn't tell me this, or I've never seen it drawn this way on the plans. There's just a lot of excuses and finger pointing and lack of ownership that way. And bidding my projects and then completing them, I didn't have any excuse. I didn't have any alibi.
Yeah, you were doing, sounds like, multiple roles on the same project.
Yeah. So I became really good at running the field. I knew the back end, and that was, I wouldn't say it was easy for me, but it came very quickly for me. And then I was working with, in the field, like a lot of field guys, superintendents in this commercial construction role. A lot of these superintendents are older, slow to adapt, new technology. They're not going to be the one. Like, for example, I was a young project manager on a project. Had like 4 projects that I was responsible for, 3 superintendents. Mm-hmm. And one of my superintendents sent me an RFI, which is a request for more information, basically like clarification on a structural detail connection, which is what he needed. And there was a beam, and he didn't know how the clip attached to the beam. Right, this is probably too much information for the viewers, but
this is your world, though. You're in.
Yeah, this is the world.
Yeah.
So the superintendent sends me this picture, and it came via email, and it was a picture of the beam, and the body of the email said, "This is a beam." And I was like, yeah, looks like a beam. And so
Is that supposed to be a punchline?
I call him. I'm like, yo, what did you just send me? And he's like, what do you mean? Like he was almost like putting it back on. I'm like, dude, what are you trying to tell me? Like, can you give me a little more? Like there's a picture of a beam. It says this is the beam. And he's like, well, I need to know what kind of SDS screw and clip attachment, you know, how this fastens together and whether or not we need third-party inspection. I'm like, okay, well, you didn't say that. Like, it just says this is a beam with a picture. And he's like, oh, yeah, like, sorry, I don't know technology.
Yeah.
And so I was like, boom, like this aha moment came on. And it was like, man, if I can make, as a project manager, if I can make that part of their job really easy for them,
yeah,
then that will win them over and they'll be on my team. And like, I'll create this really great buy-in.
So how many years ago is this?
I mean, this was like 20, mid-20s to early 30s.
Okay.
Like this time period.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like I quickly, you know, for a few years I worked in the estimating, and then I quickly got out into the field, and then from the field into the office, back into the office as a project manager.
All in Vegas.
All in Vegas, yeah. Yeah. And so, I realized quickly that these guys needed help in that tech side. And, you know, growing up as a millennial,
yeah,
the tech side, like, is easy. You know, it came natural, you know? So instead of saying like, hey, compose an email and send it to me of what you're requesting, it was more of, hey, shoot me a text with what you're wanting, or write it out, like write it down on a piece of paper and send me a picture of it, and I'll do the rest for you. And like that I got the buy-in, the team, you know?
So that gave you a lot of confidence, it sounds like, to say, I can be the quarterback of this entire experience. Yeah. I know the back end, I can estimate, I know how to deliver on the front lines, and I know how to run the business and get everybody bought in. And then fast forward to, you know, Strata. Did you start off on your own before Strata, or was Strata like that was your jump to being on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we moved up here to Southern Utah, I actually went to work for Coal West Development, which was their commercial arm of their business, doing multifamily projects. And so I ran 258 units next to the Hellhole Trailhead on Washington and Telegraph apartment complex there. Yeah. And then I did the 185 towns out behind the Harmons out there in Santa Clara up the road. And so I wanted to come up here. Kind of the goal, I didn't know when I'd go out on my own. I always knew I'd go out on my own. But amidst all of that, I met my business partner, Nate Schaefer, and we became friends. And he had some aspirations to do some things, and he was going to do it with another guy who ended up deciding it wasn't for him. So him and I started talking, and Nate processes things very slow, where I'm more of shout out to Micah. I'm more like Micah in that I send it and then I figure out whether or not I'm going to die or not. I'm just kidding.
Shoot, fire, aim.
Yeah, shoot, fire. I'm more of a shoot, fire, aim kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I moved quick. What running those projects gave me market confidence. The subcontractor market here is pretty small. So the subs knew that I would always be fair with them, that they knew I was a good guy, and that I wouldn't step on their backs to make myself look better. You know, that we all need each other. And so Nate and I came together with a partnership agreement, and we started Strata.
Yeah, congrats, man. Was there anything like you started a partnership, what would you recommend to someone who's considering a partnership? Just general do's and don'ts of having a partner come on.
I don't know if I have a lot of advice there for somebody, because I feel like, you hear a lot of horror stories about bad partnerships.
Yeah.
And Nate and I have always had a great partnership. And one of the reasons why we have a great partnership is we're both looking through the lens of, I want Nate to win and Nate wants me to win.
Yeah.
And so partnership wise, and frankly, to expound on that a little more,
that is the good advice though, right there.
Yeah. To expound on that a little more, that's what we want for all of our customers. That's what we want for our clients. That's what we want for our subcontractors. We want to create win-win-win relationships everywhere we go.
Yeah.
And that is the culture at Strata. We want our employees to be in a position to win. We want our customers to get exactly what they're expecting or more. And so I feel like that culture, that understanding, even it starts at a partnership.
Yeah.
And if there's any inclination that you feel like somebody's being self-centric, there needs to be conversation. And, I don't know.
You do know, man. That's the key is you basically said, if you're looking out for each other, you don't have to look over your shoulder to see if the other person's, you just put your head down.
Yeah.
And I think if you, one, trust your partner, that they have your best interest in mind in their heart, and then two, having like an operating agreement that reflects the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can just put my head down and go to work because they got my back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's awesome. And we brought up scaling. Where has Strata come from when you first founded it to today? What are some of those growth moments that you've had to experience?
Yeah, we've experienced a lot of growth. We started in a pretty difficult time to start a construction business where all projects start with a plan.
Yeah.
And when we started, we couldn't really get any local architects or designers to really jump on our stuff. Everybody was 6 months to a year out, right?
Dang.
Like things were...
What year was this?
So I think it was like 2020 or 2019,
Yeah, it's a tough year to get architect to respond.
Yeah. And so we looked at other ways, and we fortunately had a connection with a friend. Nate had a connection with a friend that wanted to get out of Vegas.
Nice.
And create something for him up here. And Josh Warner is his name, and we brought him online as our what is his title? Director of Architecture.
Sure.
And super talented. I mean, he's done 20, 30,000 plus square foot homes.
Wow.
Really high end detail, like McDonald Highlands, all, these big custom communities in Vegas. Custom building in Vegas is tough, and residentially. And that was his background. And so coming up here, Nate's worked with him on some of the design aesthetic of what real estate needs to look like in Southern Utah.
Yeah.
And coupled with just the way that he designs and his artsy side of his brain, like if any of our listeners out there have seen a Strata home and thought, wow, this home looks gorgeous, it's, partly because of his architecture.
Yeah.
The other part being some of the selections, but it starts with the framework. Anyways.
Well, I think everyone would want to hear, put a face to the house with the Be Your Guest house that you guys put on.
Yeah.
You see that, Micah? That was this guy. And I think, first of all, props to you guys. I think everybody would say great job. But what goes into that process? Like how does the process work, and what kind of pressure do you guys have to put together a good house?
Yeah, for the parade.
Yeah.
I mean, it was our first parade. It's a big.
That was your first parade?
Yeah.
You guys made the jump from never being in the parade to that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an awesome project to be a part of, and there's a lot to juggle there. You know, Nate and I made a commitment early on in our partnership, if we were to ever take on a parade, which was a goal, to not have it affect our customers. Right.
I like that.
And
because that's a legit concern.
It's a legit concern when it comes to customers building and selecting a builder.
Yeah.
And when to start and things like that. And we've learned a lot. And what one of the things we've learned, Ben, I'll be honest, is that we live in a trade market that has a maximum capacity of output of work. And this parade is very important to our ecosystem. You know, we get I don't know how many visitors, 68,000 visitors or 80,000 tickets. You can look it up on Suba, what the exact number, somewhere between there of direct impact to building in Southern Utah. So this is a big event for the trades, for the generals.
Yeah.
Hundreds of families and people are fed by one home being built.
Wow.
Under construction.
That's crazy to think of it like
Hundreds of people are fed.
Yeah.
By one home. And so when you have this big event, like it's important to everybody. We have this capacity of 100% is what the output of the whole ecosystem of qualified subcontractors, right?
Right.
And these trades and sometimes builders have all these good intentions, but we can only produce so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a really tough time during construction in Southern Utah. And we're hoping to navigate it a little better this year, but it's like I said, it can be difficult. And I don't know how much of that you want to put in there, Micah, but it might make Strata look bad.
No, yeah, you could text.
But genuinely, like honestly, like
well, that's the raw experience.
The
right?
raw experience is that we're committed. We have 100% capacity. The market commits to 130%, and projects suffer across the board. Our own spec homes, our customers' homes, like how do you plan against that?
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, it's sounds like an infrastructure issue. Like what I'm hearing is that there's too much demand for subcontractors to go around. Like basically, we don't have enough good subcontractors in Southern Utah to service the demand that we have here. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
more or less.
Yeah. So there's things that we're doing this year that we're starting it earlier.
Yeah,
we're running at a different pace. We're out ahead of some of these decisions that we still finished like Be Our Guest 3 weeks early than we needed to for the parade, which really brought to the hype of the home. Yeah. You know, we were able to get like the news reached out and wanted to do a video there, hyping up the
you guys had awesome
Home
content.
Builders Association. Like they reached out to us because they knew we were done.
Yeah.
So things like that, it allowed us to generate content before the parade, driving hype up to it, not during the parade. Like I feel like if you're driving content during the parade, which we still do, but you kind of already missed it.
Sure. Right.
It's the before and the after, the trickle in and the trickle out. Yes, we're ahead of some of the decisions on long lead time items. We have a really good idea of what this home will be. It's going to be another unique home. It'll be themed again.
Really?
It's going to be fun. People are going to want to see it. We don't know the exact name of what we're going to call it yet, but in my mind, there might be I might get some controversy for sharing this, but
This is exclusive footage.
it could be exclusive, yeah. But we're gonna call it the McAllister Manor.
Okay.
Because the family that lived in the home, last name was McAllister, from a popular film called Home Alone.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of funny.
Some Home Alone things.
But it's another theme, yeah.
And some booby traps all throughout it, right?
Some booby traps and some mannequins.
For real. That would be cool. The mannequins in the window, you know, that would be
They're like, we're hoping that we can create some cool social media content off of this home. Maybe even a zip line out of that window into the backyard. Like,
well, you know, I'm a big zip line guy, Micah. You seen Tim Robinson? He zip lines in the pool. He's on The Bachelorette.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you gotta see it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of my big nerdy things.
You watched The Bachelorette?
No, I watched a spoof of The Bachelorette.
Oh.
He gets on the zip line and that's all he wants to be on the show, The Bachelorette, not to win, but to use the zip line.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
So we made a whole video out of that. But I mean, content itself. So yeah, like I feel like the generation coming up, the Gen Z, mm-hmm. right? They're just built in with content. Like they just know inherently it's part of their DNA. I feel like millennials like us, like we kind of half in, half out. Why are you guys at Strata so bought into content, and what's your strategy? Because you guys are putting a lot of time into it when you have mm-hmm. other stuff that could be competing for your time.
Yeah. I feel like it's so important to create good content. It creates good branding, good imaging.
Right.
And you can create a lot of trust with somebody before you even meet them.
Yeah.
And for those reasons, like, I think it's great. And for anybody struggling with content, like, you just have to start. And it's never not uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you've done, hundreds of podcasts sitting in that chair. And I'm sure every time it's like, it gets a little bit easier, but it's still uncomfortable. Yeah. And you just have to get used to being slightly uncomfortable. And then it starts creating this identity. And a lot of Strata in the beginning was a lot of content that I was creating based off of our projects that we had. And now we have a team, and I love seeing our team creating some of the content and some of the videos and stepping up in that area, because what it's done is it's taken what was like Strata associated to Tanner via Instagram Reels, and now it's like Strata has its own identity, and these are the different players that are involved in Strata, and Strata has its own personality, its own branding, its own messaging that is way bigger than what one personality or one individual could ever be. And I love to see that.
That's a huge accomplishment. Like, I feel like, I never plan on selling my business, but I feel like that would be something that you could criticize me for. It's like, yeah, you're too attached to the brand. Mm-hmm. Like people say.
What is the name of your company, Ben?
Big Ben's Movie Store. But hey, there, like Wendy's, Wendy moved on, but Wendy's stuck around. I don't know. Yeah. It's just funny.
You just limited like the demographic of people that would want to buy your business to only Ben's,
I guess. Ben's, or I just have to sell the rights to my image, I guess. I don't know how that goes. By then they'll have an AI robot of me that I can like stay on and do stuff for them, But I love the direction you're taking everything. I love the content. One thing I like to, just highlight is the resilience, the willing to get out of your comfort zone. We talked about scaling and like the challenges that, that's not easy. It's not always fun to scale, but you're carving something out for, you said, you're feeding hundreds of mouths, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is like your next big hurdle, your next obstacle you're trying to work on with your company?
Well, we've taken down a couple. Well, our next big obstacle is that we want to take down some subdivisions, and
Like, would you do customs for the whole subdivision?
there'll be some custom, and we're exploring the semi-custom, but a mixture of semi-custom to custom.
Yeah.
We love that area. We feel like we're one of the best in that area, and our team, our back supporting structure is very robust. And that's where things at Strata are a little unique, where we view, instead of having, viewing us as we touched on this a little bit, but a general contractor with some supervision arm, we start in the beginning with, if somebody wants to build a custom home, we can help them acquire the lot. We can help them, if they own the lot, we can help them create their vision on what maybe they have. Not a lot of, it's really hard to visualize when you're looking at something on a piece of paper and you're looking at raw land. It's really hard to visualize what a structure might look like, and spaces and dimension. If you're not doing it every day, it's really hard to visualize it. And so it starts in that phase. We help them through there. We have some 3D modeling, rendering capabilities. All of our plans, when we draw them, are drawn in 3D, in a 3D model. So literally you drop in an LVL beam. That beam is physically in the model, which is super nerdy. But when it translates to the field, and why it's important is there's less waste in lumber. There's less, dimensional, these 2x6 or 2x4 dimensional odd pieces of lumber. There's less of that, substantially less, because everything is modeled and cut in that program to be optimized for the field.
Yeah.
What was your original question?
Well, I mean, my question is, where are you guys headed next?
We're headed next. There we go.
And I think that's, taking on big things like that, like keeping it custom, given the semi-custom option, that's big time.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to see like where you have come as a person from, that guy working for the tile company to, getting some really tough love from that boss, the Forbes guy, your dad, everybody else, to now, like, it's pulled a lot out of you. And I feel like you're living that bigger life. Like you're buying into, that investment that it requires,
Yeah. Where I was going with that wheel. So Strata creates this wheel of support structure.
Yeah.
In this building space. And Strata is more than just a builder. We're almost like an educator.
Yeah.
We're educating these people that want to build in the custom home space that have maybe done it only once or twice. How many times do you really build a custom home in your lifetime?
If you have a good builder, probably not very much.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, and there's a lot of weight on it.
It's difficult. Like, even if everything goes great, you're still working with people which are imperfect, materials that are imperfect. And so having this culture where everybody's on the same team, we got your back. Like, yes, we're going to have some challenges, but we have your back.
Yeah.
And like distilling that throughout everyone down to our guy putting staples in the lath on the stucco is so critical to the success of the team.
Well, and you're making it, I think that's important to highlight, right? When someone does their custom home, it's a 1 or 2 if you're doing your job right? Where they're building 1 or 2 in their lifetime because they're so content there, barring any big outside changes, finances or family situation, right? But I think when you're building a custom home, you need the coaching. And I think that's something that you guys can provide. I like that you said education, because I feel like education is the best way to sell too. Mm-hmm. Because when you educate, you put people in a position of power and you put them in a position where they're driving because you're filling them in. So bringing in, You have a real estate professional with Nate. You have a building professional with yourself. You have an architectural professional that can just do it all in house.
Interior design
As well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
and then if it exceeds our expectations of what, or exceeds our capabilities of in-house design, we have some phenomenal in-house design partners, which is, shout out to House West. They're really, they put the cream on top of the Be Our Guest structure.
wow.
Or home, I should say. Like they're phenomenal.
They
Super
did
talented.
the interior design.
Interior design, like 87 page or 90 page, 100 page, I don't know, thick spec book of what goes where, down to knob, faucet, knob, location of outlet.
Yeah.
Like insane.
Wow.
Phenomenal job.
Well, you guys are taking on big things. How about you as a person? Like, this has pulled greatness out of you going through this process over the last couple decades. And that's one question I like to ask everybody is like, what advice would you give someone who's trying to live the bigger life, who wants to maybe achieve some of the things that you've achieved or live the lifestyle you're living? How would you advise them to go ahead and make the leap to live the bigger life?
I mean, by definition of the word big, certainly my life isn't glamorous and we haven't arrived. I don't want anybody to think that. We're in the middle of it, and we have some exciting things ahead. But what we've created is a machine, a company that is doing a lot of good for a lot of people. And that's really one thing. Probably I always knew I wanted to own a business, but it's one thing that I've become really passionate about as a business owner is making sure that our team, our employees feel valued and important, and that they have a future and it's safe and secure. And I've become really passionate about that. For myself, I recognize that I'm not perfect and I make a lot of mistakes. This journey, building a business isn't easy. It's a lot of long nights. It's taken a toll on my family. It's taken a toll on what my wife carries in the home as far as her roles and responsibilities. And she's given me that space. And I hope one day we can look back, because we're not there yet, and we can say it was all worth it. I don't know, like that is my, I don't have the answer to that yet, but there's times when you have to put in the extra hours, and you're expected to be at home around 5 for dinner, and you're not. And she has to make dinner and feed the kids and do the dishes and put the kids to bed. And all of this without receiving a call or a text like, where are you? It's because she's in it. She wants this for me. She wants this for our team, and she wants to succeed. And so, sorry, I'm emotional about it because sorry, hopefully you can edit that. We're in the middle of that, and it's not easy. And it can be lonely. I think a lot of times we think as business owners, there's a lot of glamour associated with leading a company and being the guy, right? Like,
yeah.
But when you're working so much and dedicated to everybody else, making sure that everyone else is addressed, your own needs sometimes come last, and you can, I've had friends text like, "Hey, where you been? Like, why don't you text me anymore?" And it's like, dude, like, like I love you, you're my friend. Nothing's changed for me. Like, I'm working my butt off, trying to get stable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyways.
Well, a huge value. I mean, obviously going back to your wife, making the sacrifice, you're putting in, countless hours, and you're reinvesting what you could just take and say, hey, I'm good. I'm going to stabilize here. I'm going to reinvest and go for more. Right. And you're doing it for your team, right? Because if you're trying to build something special for your team, you can't do that just building, a couple houses. Like you have to go for the subdivision to create something that is big enough. And so just can't thank you enough for coming in, man, for delivering some value. I know that anyone who's, whether they're in construction or just in business in general, is going to be inspired by the story. So appreciate you being here.